for three. Bang! At the buzzer!
Welcome back to the Under 24 podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason.
What's up, bro?
I'm doing really good, man. I feel pumped today.
Yes, sir. It's time to get started.
Yeah, so let's get right into the topics. So the NBA has been in the news, sports news lately, because of players sitting out before they start playing in Orlando next month. And the player who wants the NBA to shut down is Brooklyn Nets guard Kyrie Irving. He wants the league to cancel their season, and there's rumors saying that he wants players to start their own league. So Clippers guard Patrick Beverley responded to this saying, "Hoopers say what they want. If LeBron James said he hooping, we all hooping. Not personal, only business." So what do you make of Kyrie Irving's comments that he's made over the past 1.5 weeks?
Hey, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Are you good in the sense of the NBA's Antonio Brown? Because this is ridiculous. Saying the season shouldn't be resumed, players should start their own league. Because at this point, I really think it's time to start ignoring him. I mean, there's no other reason to do this than to create drama. And what I make of his comments is that he's just trying to create drama so that he can be in the thorn of the NBA side.
Yeah, I think like he's kind of like Antonio Brown, like you said. You saw Antonio Brown. He was like cover athlete 2 years ago, and now he's out of the NFL. And I think Kyrie Irving's comments were very unnecessary. I think he's doing this just so his career doesn't look bad on him and his team, because he's playing with Kevin Durant, whom he's been wanting to play for now for a long time. So I think that's part of the reason why. And he hasn't made the All-Star game this year because of injuries, and I don't think he wants to look bad on his career to look bad, like I said before. But there's rumors going around that Kyrie Irving actually agreed to the NBA proposal, the 22-team proposal. But when he said he couldn't play the rest of the season, he asked NBA Commissioner Adam Silver if he could go to Orlando, even though he wasn't playing, just to support his team and be a leader on the bench. But Commissioner Adam Silver said that he couldn't, so he didn't want the NBA to resume play, and he wanted to cancel the season just because he wasn't able to go to Orlando.
That's kind of funny because we all know about Kelly Oubre Jr. and how he tore his meniscus, and reports have been there saying that he will be allowed to, although he will most likely not be able to play in the restart, he will be allowed to attend the Orlando restart. So I don't really know why Adam Silver said that that Kyrie Irving couldn't attend.
I think players think that they can go, but I don't know if they really can, because you want to limit the spread of the virus. So I kind of understand where I don't really necessarily know where these rumors come from, but I understand that they don't want players that are not playing in the bubble like at all times, because they're not playing, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, of course. It is important to have as few people as you can to limit the spread of the coronavirus, but these reports have started to become somewhat confusing, and my sources aren't exactly telling me the right info or what I believe is the right info.
Yeah. So why do you think Kyrie Irving made these comments?
Frankly, I really think he is a little salty that he can't be in the NBA return, or he can't play in it. And we all know how he said the season shouldn't be resumed because of the situation with the Black Lives Matter and everything like that. But no disrespect to those movements and everything, but I really think he's taking the situation too far. It's something that we should make sure we respect, but frankly, a lot of people have somewhat moved on. And I really don't see why he made these comments.
Yeah, I think he wants to cancel the season so next season when him and KD are healthy again, they can become title contenders, and that doesn't mess with their career. So I think he wants the team to do better when him and KD are healthy, and he wants the players to stop play. I think this was part of his plan. He wanted the players to stop play so that Adam Silver would try to cancel the season, but I think that won't happen. But I think he has grown into a horrible team leader in my opinion, because you look at him when he was in the Cavs, when LeBron was there, he was, even though LeBron was the leader, he was an excellent leader, and that team really followed LeBron, and he kind of showed them how to become a great team, and that's why they made the finals 4 seasons in a row and three
Yeah.
seasons with Kyrie Irving. But I think
Mhm.
he said he wanted to be the team's leader. So when he got traded to the Celtics, I think he became a horrible team leader, because you look at when you look at the Celtics now, and then you look at them last year. I think Kyrie Irving is a really good point guard, maybe even better than Kemba Walker, but you can tell that they're better with Kemba Walker because of leadership skills. And you look at him on the Nets, you can tell that he's not that good of a player, and the Nets record is even better without Kyrie Irving on the team.
Yeah, like you said, the Nets record is better with Kyrie Irving off the team. I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie's honestly been doing better team success-wise than Kyrie Irving. I really don't know why Kyrie Irving has been acting like this. I mean, no wonder the Celtics said they didn't want any more flat earthers on the team. If you
Yeah.
get that joke from a while ago. But yeah, I really don't understand. You see, with the Cavs, he tried to be the team leader, and since he wasn't, he didn't want any part of it. Even with the chance to play with one of the greatest of all time, then you go to the Celtics. He ruined their team too. They had the team with enough talent to make it to the finals. Everyone thought that they probably would make it to the finals last year at the beginning of the season, and then you could see what happened there. And then to the Nets, just like you said, it's like a dark cloud follows him wherever he goes because of his mentality and his character when it comes to getting along with the teammates.
Yeah, I think he only wants to play with players he's friends with, or that he knows, because I think he wants to control the team and become like the GM, because you saw that he was part of the firing of Penny Atkinson, and
Kenny Atkinson, yeah.
yeah, so I think he's kind of become a bad player off the court.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think one of the reasons that he's become to that is because back when back when LeBron was the leader of the Cavs, a lot of people say like if LeBron doesn't like you, you getting traded. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I feel like because of how LeBron had that type of power, I feel like Kyrie Irving wanted that type of power without being that excellent on the court. And because he wanted that power, and because he's not considered one of the GOAT candidates, he isn't exactly going to be someone who really has that power, even though he wants to have it.
Yeah. So let's move on from the NBA. Let's go to the NFL. And a guy that's been in the NFL news is Dalvin Cook, running back for the Minnesota Vikings. And he said he will hold out and he will not play any games for the Vikings if the season resumes until he gets paid. And at first, he wanted to become the highest paid running back in the NFL, but now he has lowered his asking price. He's an elite running back, so do you think Dalvin Cook's extension should be done as soon as possible, or is it not the highest priority?
Well, before I get into it, I want to say Dalvin Cook is a very good player. He had a breakout season last year, and he's definitely a top 3 running back, top 3 or top 4 running back in the NFL. With respect to that, I would say that he isn't the highest priority for the Vikings as of now. he's a very good player. He's a very, very good player, and he's a very important piece of their team if they want to be successful. You see, he had a breakout season last year with 53 receptions, about 1,100 rushing yards, 13 rushing touchdowns, 500 rec yards, and 1,600 yards in total from scrimmage last year. So you can see that he had a very good year last year. Having said that, he still has a couple years left to play with the Vikings if the Vikings do sign into the franchise tags, which I believe is obvious for them. The only way it would be the highest priority for the Vikings is if he does follow up on his promise to hold out. Then it should be definitely their number one priority.
Yeah, I think because he said he's going to hold out, I think that's why you should try to sign him as soon as possible because he's very important. I think he's a very key player to the Vikings' success. And without him, I don't think they'll be able to get far in the playoffs. And if they want to make the Super Bowl, I don't think they'll get far without Dalvin Cook. But they have many weapons like Adam Thielen and they have rookies like Justin Jefferson. But those players are not players that you can really trust. Like Justin Jefferson, he hasn't played a game in the NFL, so he has to get adjusted to that. And last year, Adam Thielen was injury prone, and he was injured almost the entire season. And I think the guy that they can trust the most is Dalvin Cook because he even though he only played 14 games, he was very valuable to them, and he was part of their success in wins in each game. So, but they don't want to pay him too much, and him to turn out to become an average running back like David Johnson. He was paid a lot, and then he just became an average running back, and now he's on the Texans, and that move now looks horrible because David Johnson hasn't lived up to what he's worth.
Yeah, I do agree with you that some contracts are not worth it because you see they become average. The running backs do become average after several years of hard production and hard hits. The one problem I have with this, with him being their number one priority, is his injuries. He's never had a 16-game season. The most he has played was 14 games last year. He could have played 16 games, but he actually did not. And I think that does hurt his contract extension money. $13 million is a fair price for a back like him, but how much longer will he be able to sustain the success? I mean, if he's going to be injury riddled the rest of his career, it is like David Johnson. He's going to be an average running back who was good a couple of years before, but because of all his injuries, he's not that good anymore. And I feel like that definitely is a problem and a concern that the Vikings should have. Having said that, his contract will be a priority, but it won't be the biggest priority unless he does feel like he needs to hold out.
Yeah, I think every season he's getting better and better. I mean, last year he had a career high 13 touchdowns rushing, and he's almost had 5 yards in each possession. So I think he's a really good player, and he doesn't deserve money that like Christian McCaffrey is getting because he's not like that type of level, and he's not that type of player. But I think he deserves about 10 million to 13 million.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I have a quick question for you. Speaking of Christian McCaffrey, do you think he was worth the $16 million?
I mean, he was one of the best running backs, and I don't know if he was really worth that because he was on a team that wasn't contending for anything. So he was really played a lot, and he was their like only good player. So I don't think he was completely worth that, but I think if he can live up to it, and if he was the player that he was last year, then I think he's completely worth that.
Okay. So I do agree with you. Dalvin Cook should take a little bit less than Christian McCaffrey, but definitely not less than 10 million. What I've heard is that the Vikings have offered him around $10 million, and he rejected the offer. He was kind of hurt in a way that they gave him
Yeah,
such low
he said
money.
he was like disrespected by the
Yeah,
money he was offered.
yeah. So having said that, I feel like if he does get the $13 million a year, this situation will be resolved. But like I said, the priority level, um, it only matters really if he does hold out.
So, how crucial do you think is Dalvin Cook to the Vikings' success?
I think very crucial. Basically, he is their offense. I mean, Mike Zimmer, their head coach, is a run the football type of coach, and that explains Dalvin Cook's 250 carries in 14 games. When he isn't injured, he is the most important player in their offense, and everything in their offense only really works if Dalvin Cook is cooking. And that the reason why that's the case is because just like Mike Vrabel with the Tennessee Titans and Derrick Henry, Mike Zimmer's offense usually runs through the run game and play action passing, which fakes the run and which fakes the run and is a pass. And because that's the reason play action passing is so effective is because if you have a good run game, the defense will be scared of your run game, and that opens up your passing after you fake the handoff. So that is a really important part, that is a really important part of Mike Zimmer's offense. And we've seen that if the offense isn't doing so well, it's usually because Dalvin Cook isn't really cooking. Having said that, I have to emphasize it still isn't a top priority, his contract, unless he really does plan to hold out.
Yeah, I think he's very important to the Vikings. I think he's one of their best weapons, even though they have so many weapons. I think he's one of the best. But if they want to get far in the playoffs, they really need him. And like you said, they run a lot of plays with Dalvin Cook running the ball, and without him, they won't really be the team they were last year, and they won't even you might not even see them in the playoffs if he's not playing.
Yeah, I agree with that because without Dalvin Cook, their offense doesn't really get anywhere. Everything in Mike Zimmer's offense is based off a good running game, and Dalvin Cook is definitely a good running game.
Yeah, so let's move on from the NFL and go back to the NBA. So since the NBA got shut down on March 11th and the season got suspended, and players have had time to get fit and use their time however they needed to, and some players have been put into use and working out or putting their game to the next level. But there have been two key players that we've seen that got that got lost weight and have been way more fit. And those two players were Nikola Jokic and James Harden. And their teams are both in the playoffs, and they're really good teams. So how much of an impact will this make for teams whose players got skinnier? Like I said, James Harden of the Houston Rockets and Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets.
Well, let's go with James Harden first. I really think James Harden will definitely improve with his drastic transformation. Because if you see his game, he was already very explosive with his handles, his shot, his floaters, his layups, and his ability to draw fouls. And because he will be so much more explosive with all the cardio work and weight loss that he's put in to work. He'll be even less tired carrying such a huge load in Houston. I really think the Rockets will do much better and will continue to elevate themselves among the playoff threats in the West. However, Nikola Jokic's weight loss is somewhat tricky to assess because most of his game meant bumping bodies with other players in the post, backing them down, which is somewhat difficult to do when you're skinny. However, he's still a really great passer, so I do believe he will have a big impact on in games. But I don't really know what his game will be like, and it will definitely be most interesting to see. And this could cause some concerns for other teams when facing the Nuggets, which is a good thing for the Nuggets, as they will have no idea what Jokic will do now, and they won't know how to prepare for it.
Yeah, I think with these players getting losing weight, they can make these teams into almost title contenders. I know that like they were really close, especially the Nuggets last year and the Rockets 2 years back. They're considered title contenders, and they can be back in that conversation as teams that could possibly make it. But I think it helps James, like you said, James Harden the most because he can play clutch minutes, and you could tell in the playoffs that he wasn't really the player he was in the regular season, especially in the clutch. He wasn't really that player that he was before. So I think him losing that weight kind of helps him because now he's not that as tired as he was before, and he can help the team move on and be successful. But for Jokic, it's kind of questionable because like you said, he's like a back to the basket type of player, and he needs to be big to um, bully those players in the post. So him being skinnier, I don't know if that helps him really, but we will see when the NBA season will resume. But I think it helps him because he was a really slow player for the Nuggets. He was like the last man on defense or the last man on offense. So I think with him losing weight, he can be faster and he can be in games longer because he's not as tired as he was before.
Well, Jeremy, let me ask you a question. How do you think Nikola Jokic's game will change? Do you think that he will be back to the basket again, or do you think he'll play on the perimeter a little more?
I think he'll still be the same player. I mean, we don't know what he's done basketball wise, like with his game. So we don't, I don't know, but I think he's still going to be that same player we saw him before the NBA season got suspended. He just might take a little time because he's skinnier, and he's not the player that we all see him as. But I think he can still play that position well that he plays.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Well, I think it may change his game. I think he may go more on the perimeter. I do feel like he's really good on the perimeter with his ability to shoot, and his ability to pass will definitely help him, as he won't be able to bully bigs as much. But because of his ability to pass, he'll be able to play on the perimeter with his skinnier build, and he'll be able to pass in backdoor cut situations and pick and rolls.
Yeah, yeah, I think he can kind of play both. But do you think they will continue to stay in shape, or will they bulk back up after the season and maybe the next season when we see them during media day? Do you think they will be the same as they are now?
Well, I think Harden will be. We all know he will be more explosive coming into the season now that he's lost his weight. And I think it'll only help him when he's carrying such a huge load in Houston. And I think he knows this, and he knows that it'll help him a lot. So he'll probably stay this way. But Jokic may be a different story. Jokic may not gain fat, but if he wants to continue to play bully ball in the post, he'll probably have to bulk up in his muscle. And I really think that's what he'll do because he's so comfortable backing down bigs in the post.
Yeah, I think they can maintain it because they've been maintaining it for about 2 months. So I think they have the ability to do that. But Harden is probably the one I trust more because he had this issue and he's trying to fix it, and he's a type of guy that wants to improve his game. Ever since he got traded from OKC to the Rockets, he's really improved his game, and he has tried to become the best player that he can possibly be. And Kendrick Perkins said that this was an issue for him and for James Harden, and that he needed to that players were getting on him to lose weight, and now I think that since he's finally has, I think he'll be able to maintain it. But with Jokic, I don't know because he's the type of guy that you you need in the post. But every season you see him during media day, he gains way more weight. So I think Nikola Jokic, like you said, needs to gain more muscle, but not particularly fat.
Yeah. So you don't think Harden will bulk up, right?
No, I don't think so because
Okay.
he's maintained it and he's thriving to become the best player that he can.
Do you think he'll bulk up in muscle at all?
Possibly you may see him like maybe not now because of the whole situation we have, but maybe next season and during like the All-Star break, you may see him get more muscles, and he has a like a mentor in Russell Westbrook because he's a guy that's been fit his entire career. So I think he can learn from Russell Westbrook.
Okay, if he does bulk up in muscle, I think it'll definitely change his game as he'll take it to the rack even more. I don't think he'll take as many step back jump shots with all the muscle he gained. Do you think right now, what's the biggest part of his game that'll change now that he became skinny?
I think it will help him more in like the clutch because he's been playing almost like 36 to 40 minutes every game, and now it helps him even more because he can get to the rack whenever he wants to, and he can shoot jump back step back threes whenever he wants to. So I think with him getting skinnier, I think it helps the team out because when he drives to the paint, almost every player on the opposing team like goes towards him, try to block it, so he can just pass it out to players like PJ Tucker on the in the corner or players like Russell Westbrook who can cut in and get an easy layup or dunk.
Okay, that makes sense. And I do agree with you. Because he's skinnier, he'll definitely be able to take it to the rack more. And on previous episodes, we said that Harden's shooting numbers do look somewhat like tour dates. Like 1 for 16, one
Yeah,
for 2 for 17. I do feel like that'll change now. I think he'll become a more efficient player because he'll be taking it to the rack a lot more. I feel like he took step back jumpers because he was more tired throughout the course of the game. He drove less, but um now since he's skinnier, he won't be tired as much, and he'll be able to drive more. And I think you can see an uptick in his efficiency.
yeah. I think he will be a way better player, but we'll have to see when the NBA season resumes on July 30th. So we have a series that we've been doing. This is our second week, and each week we talk about a team that didn't make the 22 team format. So there was 8 teams, and this is our second week. And for our second week, we'll talk about the Chicago Bulls. They haven't had a really good season, and but they are a very talented organization, and they have won, and they've been in the playoffs, so they know what it's like to be a winning team with not just before in the 90s with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, but in the past decade with Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah and Jimmy Butler. So they know what it's like to win. But a limiting factor to them this season was head coach Jim Boylan. He came in as the interim coach when Fred Hoiberg got fired and has been coach ever since that happened. But players have wanted him to be fired, and they're just frustrated with him and the entire situation this season. So, what should the Bulls look for in their head coach, and who should be their front runner candidate?
I think their next head coach, what they should look for in them is someone who brings players together. They need someone who can rally the players together. Like you see how Jim Boylan, he was making Zach LaVine very upset at the end of games with how he coached and his decisions to call timeouts and things like that. When they were down 10 points, he called a timeout with 10 seconds left. Zach LaVine was pretty angry back then,
Yeah.
and I think they need someone who's a strong presence in the locker room and someone who can help bring a winning culture change. Ever since that Derrick Rose, Joakim Noah, Jimmy Butler era was over, they've been losing and losing and losing ever since Jimmy Butler got traded. And I think if they want to change that, they have to bring in the right coach who's had experience winning before and someone who can develop the young guys to become even better players than they were before. Having said that, my front runner coach pick is David Fizdale. David Fizdale is someone who can rally people together and is known for doing a quality job developing young players. And I really think he gets too much blame for coaching a Knicks team who we all know was and is horrible anyway. He's a great person, and I think he's a great leader.
Yeah, I think David Fizdale is a good coach, especially when he was with the Grizzlies. He led them to the playoffs and stuff. I think he is a good coach. But I think what the Bulls need to look for is a guy that can develop their young players, like Kobe White and Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr. And they need them to mesh together and them to play as well as they can. And they need a guy like Tyronn Lue, as you when he was a coach of the Cavs in 2016 when he got promoted to head coach. He pushed his players to become their best versions of themselves, and that team really went on a huge streak, and then they became the NBA champions that year. So I think they need a guy like him who can develop their players and mesh those players together to have a winning lineup and a team and make the team make the playoffs next season. So when I looked at the head coaching position or the positions that or the candidates that were available, a guy that struck out to me was Kenny Atkinson. I think he can be a great coach. He develops his young players and he makes the team good. And he did this with the Brooklyn Nets when he was there. He developed players like Spencer Dinwiddie and Joe Harris and Karis LeVert, and he pushed them and they made the playoffs last season. So I think that really helps them because they know that Kenny Atkinson can do all that stuff. So I think with the Bulls, I think they need a guy like him because he's he can develop the players and that team can make the playoffs.
I think those two picks were very good. Tyronn Lue brings the winning aspect, the winning culture aspect of the head coaching, and Kenny Atkinson brings the culture, the locker room presence change. But I think if you want to have a combination of the two, David Fizdale is the person to beat. I mean, he has before he was the Knicks head coach, he was a key assistant coach for the Memphis Grizzlies during the grit and grind era, and multiple players like Mike Conley and Marc Gasol have gone out of their way to praise him on how much of a presence he was and how supportive he was to them. And that during that era of the Memphis Grizzlies, they did do a lot of winning. So he does know how to bring a winning culture, and he has a strong locker room presence to rally together all the guys. So I do agree with Tyronn Lue and Kenny Atkinson. They each have one aspect that is important to being a good head coach. But if you want each aspect to a lesser degree, but have both aspects, which is what I would prefer, I would choose David Fizdale.
I don't know really about David Fizdale because he hasn't really proved himself because he had an I know he was coach of the New York Knicks, but even then he wasn't really good. And even since he got fired, the team got better. And with the Memphis Grizzlies, he hasn't really shown that he can become a good coach, even though he was a good assistant with the Miami Heat. when they won championships with LeBron and D Wade. But I think Kenny Atkinson is the best available coach because they have young guys, and I don't think Dave Fisdale really can help with young guys because you saw it in New York. He had young players like Dennis Smith Jr., Frank Ntilikina, Mitchell Robinson, and he hasn't really played those players and helped those players develop. But like a guy like Kenny Atkinson can help those players and make them as good as they possibly can, and that he can lead this team to the playoffs. Like you saw when with the Brooklyn Nets, they didn't have any first round picks, and they still were a good team and they made the playoffs. So I think a guy like him can, a guy like Kenny Atkinson can really help the team.
Yeah, I see your point. I do think David Fizdale is a good pick, but Kenny Atkinson is also a good pick as well.
Yeah, so there's just not it's just not the head coaching position that it's been bad, but there's many other positions or holes they need to fill. So what other needs do you think they need beside a head coach?
There aren't really many needs besides head coach that the Bulls have. They do have a couple of needs, but I feel like if they find the right head coach, they could definitely be a playoff caliber team or a really good team. The two needs I think they have are small forward and a backup center. For small forward, Otto Porter Jr. is good, but he's had his injuries, nagging injuries throughout the year. And although Shaquille Harrison is a quality small forward, he's definitely not a starting caliber small forward right now. What I think they need from the small forward position is a borderline starting quality small forward who does not have a lot of nagging injuries like Otto Porter Jr. That's
And
one need I have. What?
you also got to realize that he's getting like paid so much money that I don't think he deserves. I think he's being kind of overpaid for the type of player he is. Don't you think?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think he's exactly a starting caliber type of player.
Hmm.
He's a decent player, but he's not worth his money.
Yeah.
When it comes to the role he has.
Hmm.
Yes. So another position of need that they have is backup center. Behind Wendell Carter Jr., they don't really have too many options. And the problem with Wendell Carter Jr. is he's been injury riddled for his career up until now. Daniel Gafford is, in my belief, a decent backup center when you look at the film, but they could definitely find a better backup center in free agency or in the draft. And I feel like those are the two needs that they have, because if these two needs are filled, the Bulls could be a very good team as they are 2 to 3 players deep at each position.
Yeah, I think they have a lot of guards that can play backup minutes, but I think they need a backup forward, big or forward, because really their backups are like Cristiano Felicio and Daniel Gafford. And I think Daniel Gafford is okay and decent, but he's still young, and he's not. And I don't think the Bulls can really wait that longer because some players are about to come off their rookie contracts, like Larry Markkinen. So I don't think you can wait for that, and I think you need to try to get to the playoffs to retain these players. So I think you need uh, a guy that can play a 4 or 5 or power forward or like center position that's decent or above average, because you don't want that team to be an average team and not make the playoffs like last year. So I think they need a guy that can play the backup 4 and 5. And also I think they need veteran players, but because their team is really young. Even I don't know. I think their oldest player is like Thaddeus Young, and he hasn't really been happy about his situation in Chicago, and he wants more playing time, and he might not even be on the Bulls next season. So I think they need more veteran players that are okay with not playing that many minutes, but can teach the players like what to expect each game and how and what to do in situations like going into the playoffs if they do, or in clutch situations. They've been in that situation before, so I think a veteran player can help them out.
Yeah, I agree with you. Strong veteran presence is definitely needed on the Bulls team because Thaddeus Young is only 31, and being the oldest person on that team, that's not exactly the best situation to have if you want to have a winning culture. Besides the head coach, you also need a winning culture among the players too. So one backup center I would have is Joakim Noah. Joakim Noah, last time we saw, had a lot of energy. Last year with the Grizzlies, he's a strong veteran presence that's old. He he's not super old, but he's old enough to take a very low contract. You could probably find him for $1 to $3 million. That's it. Along with that, he's a hustler. He has a lot of energy. He's a fun presence in the locker room. He makes sure that the younger guys know how to win, as you could see with the Grizzlies last year. And I feel like he's not someone who could eat up all your playing time and could benefit the young guys a lot in the long run.
Yeah, I think Joakim Noah is a nice player, but I don't know if he's going to go back to Chicago, because I don't know if I know like the fans and everyone there loves him, but I don't know if he really wants to go back to a team that might not play him that as much as minutes as he wants to, because when he was in Chicago, he was like their one of their top players with Derrick Rose. So I don't know if he will get as much playing time as he wants, but I think he's a really good player, and he showed that with the Memphis Grizzlies. And he's getting older, so he can take a lower contract. And I agree with you.
Okay. I think they do have a need for a backup small forward. Who do you think someone who could be on the market this next free agency that could be a good player for them?
I really like. There isn't really that many good players that are in this 2020 free agency. So I haven't really don't know about that, but I think they need a guy that a sixth man type player who can come off the bench and score and get you buckets really quickly, because I think they need a boost off the bench, because on their bench they have players like Ryan Arcidiacono, like Chris Dunn, Daniel Gafford, and I don't think that really helps them as a team.
Yeah, I agree with you. So what I think we can sum it up. Their needs really are a backup big who's a veteran. They need a backup big. They need a veteran that has a winning that can maintain a winning culture. They need a small forward who can do good off the bench, and they also need someone who can take a low contract with minutes that can be a strong presence in the locker room.
Yeah, I think that's what the Bulls need to do, and hopefully they can make the playoffs next year. So I think that's the end of our podcast, and thank you for listening to the Under 24 podcast. Remember that we post every Friday on this channel, Under 24, and we hope that you subscribe and make sure to share this video, and we hope that we see y'all next time.